any aspirations of messiahship, or you just got yourself a new Messiah. Second, Jewish beliefs about the afterlife preclude this as being an explanation for the origin of the Christian faith, because there was never any expectation of any sort of pre-eschatological resurrection of anyone. This is made painfully clear in John 11:24, when Mary says that Lazarus will rise in the final resurrection in response to Jesus' statement that her brother Lazarus, who just died, if you read the story, Lazarus dies, Jesus comes over 4 days later, Mary says it's too late. Mary says that Lazarus will rise in the final resurrection when Jesus said her brother will rise again. Now finally, pagan influences do not account for the explanation of the origin of the Christian faith, because religiously speaking, Palestinian Jews of the first century were extremely conservative and would not and did not believe in these pagan gods of their neighbors. Paul Eddy and Gregory Boyd's lengthy chapter regarding the archaeological evidence for this in their book, The Jesus Legend, strongly supports this point. Now, after presenting arguments for Jesus' resurrection, and after presenting the Leibnizian argument from contingency, and after presenting the moral argument, I think we are more than justified in our belief in the Christian God. I yield the rest of my time. Thank you for listening very much.
Okay, honest discussioner, the floor is yours whenever you start. The timer does not start until you start talking, so whenever you're ready.
Very well, thank you. Hi, and good evening. I am the honest discussioner. Before I begin, I want to thank MigKillerTwo for participating in this debate, and I especially want to thank everyone in the audience for coming, whether you're a theist or an atheist or somewhere in between, or you just randomly walked in here. I especially want to thank the moderator, UNFF Wildcard, for moderating and also being timekeeper. I'm sure it's not the most fun job in the world, but I appreciate it. Also, this should be posted on both of Mig's channel and my channel as well once the debate is finished. I believe MigKiller is actually recording it. I also want to mention again that I'll be opening up a chat room after the debate is over if anyone would like to continue discussing this topic. Now, I want to begin by describing myself and my beliefs while establishing my intent for this debate. Now, I describe myself as an atheist agnostic, which by popular definition means I make the positive assertion that there is no theistic God, no religious God. I'm making that positive assertion, but I am agnostic in that I assert we cannot know whether there is a conscious creator of the universe that is aware of our existence. It's beyond our ability to prove or disprove that. The Christian God makes assertions that can be disproved, but the overall very vague concept of God is not quite so touchable. Now, it is these positions I will be defending tonight, and I will now discuss some of my reasons behind those beliefs before I address Mig's points. Now, let's start in a more general sense and work our way down to specifics. I assert that we cannot know whether there is a God or not in the general deistic sense. Now, many may disagree with that statement. It may affirm that through some methodology, be it naturalistic or otherwise, that we can. Now, the very nature of God, as described by most, is that of an eternal, conscious entity that lives outside of time and space. Now, through testable and observable means, we cannot detect such an entity. But beyond the literal scientific test, some may posit that we can see his footprints, or her footprints, depending on your belief. Look for signs that the universe was created by an intelligent being with purpose, and that purpose having something to do with our species and this pale blue dot that we inhabit. Unfortunately, I'd have to argue that we cannot use that methodology. When we look at our planet and the universe, we are seeing the only physical reality that we've ever known. We don't have a universe that we know was created through intelligent means and one we know was not. Simply put, we cannot look at the characteristics of our universe and say they are designed because we can't be sure of what sort of characteristics to really look for. Of course, you may argue we do have examples of things that are designed, such as the popular motorboat analogy, a la the intelligent design movement's favorite example. Now, we can recognize that a motorboat is designed, and no one would deny that it was, so therefore why not the universe? Well, first off, humans' design of machines and how the universe works are two totally different things. We cannot rightfully compare the two. I'll use another popular analogy to illustrate my point, the painting analogy. If we had a painting of unknown origin and we needed to discover if it was painted by a particular person or not, we'd look at some of the works of that person that we know were created by them and compare the style and technique as well as other features to see if they match up. Unfortunately, we have no previous works to go on. This is it, as far as we can tell, for the universe. We have no universe that we know came from naturalistic processes and one we know came about through intelligence to compare ours to. The very notion of using intuition to show something is designed is flawed. How many times have we heard people swear up and down that the image of the Virgin Mary appeared in some form, perhaps on a wall or even toast? You may believe that these were designs sent by God, but I'd argue it's because of the powerful shape and pattern recognition abilities our species has that is the reason why we see these images in the first place. Does God design the clouds to look like a particular object as we watch from below? And if so, why does the person next to you see something different? There are people that collect potato chips that look like famous people, and when they tell you who it looks like, most immediately recognize the similarity. But I don't believe God is molding all of those potato chips as evidence of his divine nature. And I don't think it's rational to believe otherwise. My point is that our ability to detect design is compromised by the fact we often see design when there is none. For our sake of survival, we evolved the ability to seek patterns, and it is that ability that I believe is at work when we think we see a design in the universe. The conclusion here is that if it was designed, we have no way of really knowing naturalistically. But what about beyond naturalistic? Perhaps you feel as though through some sort of spiritualistic sense that we can know God exists, through some abstract concept. Perhaps his supposed communication to us through prayer and vision should be considered proof. Unfortunately, no, because these are not verifiable, nor are they really reliable. How could one tell the difference between a hallucination and a revelation? And even if you could, how would the rest of us know the difference between someone who has actually seen a vision from God and one who has convincing hallucination? Perhaps that vision or experience did happen, and you are convinced it was real. That still does nothing to prove it to anyone else. And if you assert that it is, how can you tell which of the experiences are right among the ones that contradict each other? Virtually every major religion has these experiences, and they mostly conform to their culture's beliefs. Why do Hindus see Krishna during their spiritual experiences? If indeed spiritual experiences are a result of a connection to God, we should see more consistency than we actually do see. So evidence from experience is really not evidence at all. And where does that leave us? Well, that's probably where the expertise of my opponent tonight comes in, and by that I mean history. I believe that not just his previous arguments, but the rest of the debate will be centered a lot on the historical evidence for the Bible, and Jesus in particular, and he'll be trying to make a compelling case, enough to warrant belief in Jesus, and we're almost at the point where I'll be addressing his points directly now. But before I give you the reasons why I reject Christianity in general, let's first establish that the basic characteristics of God as all-powerful, all-knowing, and in Christianity I think it's safe to say that he loves humanity and wants what's best for us. That being said, I'd posit that the Bible story as a whole is entirely ridiculous. Now, let's go over the story briefly. Now, God created the universe, billions of light years wide, so that on one planet the conditions would be just right for life to slowly develop over the course of billions of years. Eventually, the true purpose of his creation would come into being, and that would be us. Now, we're not going with the Adam and Eve story, since Mig is an ardent supporter of evolution, so I'm not sure if he really buys the Adam and Eve story as a literal interpretation. But even though man was created by a perfect being, God, somehow we became less than perfect. So terrible were we that we overcame the perfect way in which a perfect being created us, and now we have sin ingrained in this intangible thing called a soul, as well as the world and possibly even the universe, because of the actions of a few people early in the days of our species. But even though we were so terrible as a species and God could no longer walk with us, he had a plan. A plan he had planned the entire time. The invention of sin by mankind was, of course, unavoidable. His plan involved, first off, waiting a few millennia so that humanity could forget all about him. then one day picking a signal ethnic group and picking them as more important than all the others, and appearing to them over the course of a few thousand years, helping them in their territorial conquests and giving